took opposite directions, so that actually worked out well. Do you girls want to go first? They're still writing.
Sure. Okay, these are our guidelines, and we did for like students in the classroom.
Yeah, go for it.
Okay. Our first one says allowance for tablets in class, but no phones except for permission. And the second one will address phones. But like, we decided that kind of cutting them off from technology completely in the class is probably not the best idea, considering this is such like a global age. So instead, we would use technology to the advantage in the classroom and use the tablets, which is also in the third one.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So for the second one, you mentioned that some teachers had this idea where you like put phones in like the front of the class, like on the blackboard or like in little bags or something. I'm not sure. And then like if they need it, if it's an emergency or something, they can like see, or if you have it on, if it's like a real emergency, you could like have it on volume, and like if it starts ringing, that child can like get their phone. So that's just one way to like not have them, or even they can put them on the desks. We were saying as another option that like, so then you see them. So at least like they're not trying to like hide it below, which we all know people just have to do. So.
Right. Yeah, it's pretty clear when they're. Yeah.
Yeah, and basically, since we're allowing tablets and other technology, it's just kind of like an honor code that they're following along with the lecture or whatever activity we're doing online.
Mm-hmm. Right. Great. I would say all wonderful. One thought I had, and this last sentence up here, I think sums my comment up, but I don't know where you all will be teaching, be it in 6th or 12th grade, but this looks very different depending on the grade. Middle schoolers and their impulse control is still developing, so having a device in front of them where you say, you're on the honor code, that you are following along and you are not playing games or you're not, texting your friends or whatever. They want to follow it. They are trying really hard, but that temptation is there and they just react, and not that they're going to play games, but they might be really distracted by it. So at least in middle school we have conversation with parents saying, okay, we're bringing these devices into the classroom. Talk with your student about if you think it's a good option for them. If there's someone that might be distracted by this, have a conversation at home about why it might need to stay there. And we have many students who self-select and opt out of devices in the classroom because they know they just can't keep their hands off them. High school, that's completely different, so they hopefully have that impulse control by then. Okay, what did you guys come up with?
Someone you like to tell?
All right.
Thank you, John.
Sure. The first one was that we're talking more about in terms of the administrators and faculty. So the first rule would be we would mandate separation of personal and professional content. So like we were talking about as far as Twitter accounts, like having one Twitter account for yourself and another one for the classroom specifically. Secondly, there was something we call the all or nothing access policy. It says unless all students have equal access to technology, it may not be integrated into the classroom or established in the curriculum. And I mean, one caveat that I suggested was that like you could use it basically as like a supplement to learning, if that was the case, but you can't use it as part of the core curriculum, because if not all the students are able to get equal access to it, then it's just not fair. And finally, all content must be relevant to the course material, and you have to be able to prove that relevance should be asked by an administrator.
Yeah, I think that one's really important because I love technology and I'll see some cool new program and like, I can't wait to use this in the classroom, but I need to wait for the right time in the content of my curriculum for it to come up and say, okay, now it makes sense to use this. I can't just throw it in there and make it work when really it's taking away from the actual curriculum that I'm developing. So that's an important one, relevance and purpose. All right, cool, good job. I was just going to show you all real quick if you wanted, you had mentioned a few of you about Twitter. So this would be my Twitter page. My Twitter is a blended Twitter. I have many things on there that I follow that are sort of just personal interests. I love following news around Pittsburgh and pop culture news and stuff happening in Philly, where I used to live. So I have a lot of that personal stuff on there that comes up in my newsfeed. But a lot of times I find that it actually fuels some of my professional interests, and I like not separating it. And then also on here, I follow tons of educators. Some are educators that I've just worked with or met at conferences. Others are nationally recognized educators for works they've published or projects they've run in schools. And so if you are new to Twitter and trying to get started, this would be my recommendation. So come up with a Twitter handle that is easy to tell people what it is, and so when you tell people they know. It's not something you'd feel weird saying or repeating. And then pick a few educators that either are professors here or people like me perhaps, or teachers at the schools you might be working in, and see who they follow. Go to their follow list and click on some of the other educators and programs that they follow, because that's going to build up a base that will just explode as you scroll through. So, like you can see, obviously I'm looking at what's happening in the Penguins game, but also looking at conversations here. So this is an educator I follow. He tweets all the time across all different kinds of education blogging sites. He'll tweet back at you. Never have met him, but he does all kinds of things. And then you can sort of look at things like this. So, okay, he's talking about what is school, let's see what's happening there. And then you can see this whole conversation among, I don't even really know what this is, but a whole bunch of educators talking about a topic. What is school? What is school? A teacher that I worked with previously, she's one of my colleagues in Philadelphia. She actually started the EdChat Twitter chat conversations. So if you're familiar with, or not EdChat, IngChat. If you're familiar with EdChat, which is a educators chat on Twitter that happens once a week for an hour at a certain time. There's also an IngChat. She runs the English chat, so for secondary English teachers. There's an SES chat, there's a side chat, there's math chat, there's all kinds of language chats, and you get connected with educators through that. That's not something you can actually commit to doing every week, but you can log in once a year and just refill your Twitter list with educational people. And then someone like this, who I think she's a really great example. If you wanted to look at her, who she follows, this would be a really great person to go in and look and see who they follow. She has been published by several educator publishing companies. Her most recent work, Thrive, that's what she's promoting there, is a great one on how to reinvigorate your teaching. So she's also in conversations with educational publishers as well as teachers, and she also uses this Twitter in her classroom. She did a whole, I'd have to search back forever to find it, but she did a whole lesson where her kids put together a playlist for a Great Gatsby party. So they were reading Great Gatsby in English class, and her students are all inner city African American students living well below the poverty line, so connecting with the extravagant life of Gatsby was quite a stretch, and so she just had them tweet at her songs that they might play if they went to a Gatsby party. And quite interesting, it was right before the new Gatsby came out, and they all were tweeting basically the soundtrack that became the Great Gatsby soundtrack. And like without knowing it, they just tweeted all these Jay-Z songs and all this stuff, and that's what's in the film. So after the fact, she was able to go back to it and say, hey, you guys picked the same music that the directors chose, which was pretty neat. And she was able to tweet to the musical director and actually have a conversation with her students on Twitter about the music in the film. So really cool use. That's in an 11th and 12th grade class where students have Twitter. And again, those are all students that don't have access to personal devices, but they have accounts on Twitter because at school they're able to log in. So that addresses some of the equity equity issues if you guys were having a conversation about that. But that's really all I had in mind. I just kind of wanted to expose you to that. I know sometimes in college you can get locked into the classes that you're in, and it feels like you're disconnected from the world of professional educators. So this is a place where you can really plug in and start your professional sort of life there. So yeah, feel free to follow me, feel free to follow her, anyone else. And reach out to me if you have questions. I tweeted that Prezi out, so if you wanted to look at it again closer, we certainly didn't look at it all. Let's go just get mine. I just put GCC SES, so you guys can tweet to that all kinds of things about your secondary education learning. And you can click on that Prezi and see it further if you want to. That's it. Thanks for coming. And take some more candy on your way out.